Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Quinte West Chamber of Commerce Provincial Candidates Forum. We're really happy to be able to host this event today to give our candidates a chance to let the voters out there, many of whom are joining us today, are business owners or business people working in Quinte West and the surrounding area. And we know that there's a lot of issues that you'd like to hear about today. This event is primarily for the benefit of the business community, but these days, business issues and social issues are so intertwined, it's very difficult to even establish what is a business issue and what is a social issue. They're all impacting our businesses, on their ability to attract and retain the employees that they need. And so you're going to see sort of a blending of various questions that are going to cover both sort of sides of our community. All provincial candidates representing parties with at least one seat in the provincial legislature have been invited to participate. We have Sean Kelly representing the Liberal Party, Tyler Alsop from the Ontario Progressive Conservatives. We have Amanda from the New Democratic Party, and Laurie Bosworth from the Green Party. So welcome to all of our candidates tonight. Thank you for joining us. There are three other candidates, and I wanted to mention this, that have also put their names forward on the election ballot. Due to the constraints of doing this through Zoom, we were unable to work with 7 candidates. And so Margaret Schuler is representing the New Blue Party, Mark Snow representing the Libertarian Party, and John Turmel is representing is running as an independent. So we have drawn names for our candidates, which will tell us which order they are going to be starting with their opening remarks, and we will do the reverse for the closing remarks. So each candidate will have a maximum of 3 minutes for his or her opening remarks, and they will get alerted when there's only 1 minute left and 15 seconds remaining. So the order for tonight is with Sean Kelly first, followed by Tyler Alsop, Amanda, and then Laurie. So Sean, you have 3 minutes for your introduction.
Sean appears to be muted.
There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. It wouldn't unmute. Anyway, thanks, Suzanne, for the introduction. It's good to be here. Appreciate all the business community joining us, too, for this conversation piece via Zoom. We got used to it during the pandemic, and here we are, 2024, still using it in September. First of all, I have a strong connection to Trenton and Quinte West. That's where I got my start with Quinte Broadcasting. I was a young broadcaster, did the morning show, and program director at CJTN back on 31 Quinte Street. So I have a connection. And when I was in Trenton, I coached minor hockey. I was involved in the community with different projects and fundraising events and festivals. I was also president of the Trenton Kinsman Club, and I know they're quite active today in Quinte West under the Kin name, but some really good memories. And I've been working and living in the Quinte area now for the last 30 years. I have 2 children. Liam is my son. He's got a couple credits to go for his political science degree at the University of Toronto. And my daughter, Taylor, just graduated this past summer from Carleton University, and she's studying her LSATs to become hopefully a lawyer and get into law school and start that journey this coming September, so in a year from this time. You know, I love this area. The Bay of Quinte has been very kind to me. The people I've gotten to know over my decades of work, from community programs, charitable work, and now as a counselor for the last 6 years in Belleville. I was also a school board trustee, spent a lot of time at schools in Trenton with the Algonquin Lakeshore Catholic School Board, getting to know the people. Coach minor hockey back in Trenton, and I still bump into some of the players. I see them out now. They're in their 30s with their own families, but it's really nice to connect with them and share those memories. I just wanted to give an update too. Some of my work with the area, I'm on the Hastings Prince Edward Public Health Board. I work closely with Quinte West and the county with that. Also on the Bay of Quinte Conservation Authority for the last, well, I was for 4 years. Also chair of the Economic Development Committee in the city of Belleville. And I think they have some of the same challenges and successes that you have here in Quinte West. I'm also been the coordinator for Truth and Reconciliation for the city of Belleville for the past 3 years. I understand the role of food for learning in schools. I was a committee member for that. I'm also on the Accessibility Committee in the city of Belleville. So I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight. Lots of experience. And thanks, Susan, again for the invite to be a part of this.
Thanks, Sean. Next up, we have Tyler Alsop with your opening remarks. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, and I want to thank everyone for watching tonight. I'd also like to thank the Quinte West Chamber of Commerce for putting this event together, and a big thank you to all my fellow candidates for participating in this important discussion about the future of the Bay of Quinte. My name is Tyler Alsop, and as a lifelong resident of Belleville, where I live with my wife Jennifer and our 3 children, I understand the challenges and opportunities that matter most to families. As a former small business owner, I understand the daily struggles of local entrepreneurs and what it takes for them to succeed. As the former chair of the Belleville Police Services Board, I made sure that our officers had the resources that they needed to keep our community safe. And since 2021, as a Belleville City Councilor, I've worked tirelessly to reduce costs for both families and businesses, and to make sure that we're getting the shovels in the ground that we need to build the new homes that are desperately needed in our community. I'm running to be the next MPP of the Bay of Quinte to continue that work and to keep delivering real results for the Bay of Quinte. Our government has made real progress over these last 6 years, but there's still more work to be done. We've made progress on all the issues that matter most to you, on healthcare, education, transportation, and transit, as well as bringing good paying new jobs to the community and educating people for those roles. We've stood strong against the costly liberal carbon tax, which makes everything more expensive and affects all of us. We're working on widening the 401 to cut down commute times and keep our economy moving. And most importantly, we've set a bold goal to build 1.5 million new homes by 2031 to bring the goal of home ownership to be a reality for more of our residents. My focus is on continuing to get things done in the Bay of Quinte, whether that's attracting more good paying jobs, making life more affordable, or supporting our local communities. I'm ready to get it done for you. And that's why this September, I urge all of you to vote Tyler Alsop as the next MPP of the Bay of Quinte. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight.
Thank you, Tyler. Next up is Amanda Robertson. Amanda, you have 3 minutes for your opening remarks.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you to the Quinte West Chamber for hosting this event. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to get my platform and get my position out here. I know it's a short campaign period, so every opportunity is really, really valuable. So thank you so much for that. So my name is Amanda Robertson. I am a mother of 3, a school board trustee. I'm a farmer's daughter, born and raised on a dairy farm, and an active community member here in Belleville. We made Bay of Quinte our home 8 years ago. We came here in large part because my husband is a family doctor and there was a massive shortage in the region. I can say without a doubt that that shortage has exploded since we've been here. So things have only gotten worse here for people in the Bay of Quinte with respect to accessing family doctors. From my vantage point on the school board, or as the partner of a healthcare worker, or as a board member on one of our local non-for-profits that works in the realm of dealing with people in marginalized communities, we've really noticed that there seems to be a theme where we're not necessarily having the support we need from our provincial government, and people are hurting. People in our community are hurting, businesses are hurting. And so I've decided to throw my name in the hat because I think we can do better. And I know that we deserve better here in the Bay of Quinte. We deserve representation that takes our voices, our concerns, but also our solutions to Queen's Park, and advocates for them to be funded and for us to have a reliable partner in the provincial government. I know a vote for NDP in this election is It's not going to change the government. Doug Ford is still going to be the premier at the end of the day, but it is an opportunity for us to send a message to him to say that we're not happy with the state of our community right now. And there's some work to be done here. So voting for NDP means you're voting for a party that's going to put people first, that's going to stand up to Doug Ford's cuts to education, healthcare privatization, and corporate interests. And it's truly a vote for a government that will fight for the people of the Bay of Quinte to make life better.
Great. Thank you very much, Amanda. And Lori, you're going to close off our opening remarks. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I just want to thank Suzanne Andrews and the Quinte West Chamber of Commerce for getting this debate on in record time. We really do appreciate this forum and a chance to get our views out. I would like to acknowledge that I am an uninvited settler to these lands in the Bay of Quinte, and that I'm grateful that these lands have been protected and stewarded by the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe throughout time. I acknowledge my responsibility to protect and steward the land I currently reside upon for future generations. Last night, I focused on how gratitude for a natural world and the web of life that sustains us is the lens through which we create green policies. Today, I would like to focus on caring. All throughout our green platform, we emphasize caring. It's a green and caring economy, support to create a caring society. This is what we emphasize. Right now, we're facing a crisis. A number of people are struggling with homelessness, and the numbers are increasing every day. From being legislated into poverty through disability, old age, unemployment, to struggling with mental health and addiction concerns, we see people of all ages living without a place to call their own. This is unacceptable in a caring society. So I want you to consider your vote on September 19th. Will it help those who are struggling? And I want you to encourage your friends and neighbors to vote. Let's ensure this election is not won or lost due to apathy. Your vote does matter. Next, I want you to realize that the job of a caring society does not end with your vote on September 19th. I want you to know that on September the 20th, we Ontarians need your voices. We need you to contact your elected representatives, your MP, your MPP, the Premier of Ontario, the Prime Minister of Canada, and you need to tell them that here in the Bay of Quinte, we need more help. The status quo is not acceptable. And we Greens know that people power works because that is how we have made change so far. And lastly, I want you to look in your pantry. Do you have anything to donate that could help feed a family in need? Are you able to donate to your local food bank, Trenton Care and Share, or a Gleaners Food Bank? If so, please do so. And if you need help with the pickup, just email us at bayofquinte@gpo.ca. We'll be happy to come pick it up and make sure it gets to the local food bank. And I want you to look in your closets. Despite the warm weather today, it's getting cold, and we need warm coats, hats, mittens, fleecewear that can help keep someone warm this fall and winter. You can either donate it yourself to the Grace Inn Shelter or the Bridge Street Outreach, or you can email us again at bayofquinte@gpo.ca, and we'll make sure that it gets to the people in need. As a Green, I feel politics should be done differently. I am listening. I hear your concerns, and I want to advocate for you. I will be your voice at Queen's Park.
Thank you, Lori. That concludes our opening remarks. We are going to now go into the question section of tonight's business forum. We received questions from our Government Affairs Committee and also from our general membership. We had many questions that were sent in that were very similar, so they have sort of been combined into one question on that particular topic. I just wanted to take a moment. I know that the Chamber President, Brent Parsons, is on the call. And Brent, I don't know if you would wanted to say a few words on behalf of the Board of Directors and our Government Affairs Committee.
Absolutely. Thanks, Suzanne. So yes, just thank everybody, especially the candidates, for joining us tonight for this important event here. Just getting to know everybody in the Bay of Quinte and to have everybody know a little bit more about you. And welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent. We are now going to start with the questions. And these first 4 or 5 questions I'm going to pose to all of the candidates, and we'll sort of just take turns with who's going to answer it first. You have 2 minutes each to answer the questions. And I'm going to start with the first question that's going to start with Sean, and then we'll go through the list in order. So Sean, what do you feel the government could do to help workers who are deeply impacted by the high cost of living? What would your approach to be to promote economic growth while ensuring fair wages and good working conditions?
Thanks for the question, Suzanne. First of all, when Ford cut rent control, I mean, it's just skyrocketing. That's what I hear, when I'm campaigning. And I heard the stories in Quinte West where people were paying $1,600 or $1,700 for a place. I just spoke to a family actually in the west end of Trenton last week. They're in around $2,300 plus heat and hydro and all the expenses, cable. They're now paying about $2,600. Family with 2 children. It's not attainable. And, it's rent control. When Ford let that go, was not a good thing for people. Also, too, attracting people to come to our community is really important. Work strongly with Loyalist College. We know that they have some wonderful programs there at the World. It's called the Bay of Quinte Skills Center. They have graduates that are taking electrical, heating, manufacturing jobs, small engine repair. The challenge is get into those programs and then staying locally, working in our community with the skills that they can get a job and they can raise their family on. Things are out of whack as far as the cost of things. Ontario currently has the highest small business tax rate in the entire country. Think about that. 130,000 more people are unemployed in Ontario than when Ford came into office. And we have the housing crisis to deal with. It's the affordability. We just saw the investment. Hastings County, a 32-unit, $14 million project, hopes to be up and finished in a couple of years. Ford government has given $0, and that's going to be built in Trenton. Think about that. 32 units, 14 million, and $0 from the Ford government. And when Tyler talks about investing and the Ford government wants to invest in affordable homes and work with communities, well, they've fallen short there on that particular building going up in Trenton. So we need lots of mixed, affordable units. And it seems like we're going in on this alone. Municipalities are doing it on their own.
Okay. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask Tyler the same question. What do you feel the government could do to help workers who are deeply impacted by the high cost of living? What would your approach be to promote economic growth while ensuring fair wages and working conditions? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Suzanne. And the rising cost of living is one of the biggest challenges that families face today. And the disastrous Liberal carbon tax is only making it worse. From day one, we have fought the Liberal carbon tax, unlike Bonnie Crombie, who supported it before it even existed. We're also taking real steps to cut costs for families. For example, we cut the gas tax by 10 cents per liter and scrapped the license plate sticker fees, saving an average of $240 a family. And that was something that Sean, as a councillor, tried to get reintroduced in a motion that was not supported by any other councillor when he asked to write a letter and reinstating those fees. $240 a family may not seem like a lot to Sean's family. For a lot of people, that makes a pretty big difference. We also banned any road tolls on provincial highways and froze driver's license fees. And these are the types of measures that make life more affordable. Not to mention, we cut taxes for 1.1 million low-wage workers. Bonnie Crombie has called these gimmicks, but she would reinstate them. We're keeping costs down for families and businesses, which is why we refuse to raise taxes, and we're investing in workers with $1.4 billion in our Skills Development Fund, which is helping train Ontario workers for better jobs and bigger paychecks. This is the best way to support workers and bring good-paying manufacturing jobs after the Liberals chased them away during their 14 years in government. 300,000 jobs chased away by failed Liberal policies. We're making sure that more jobs are coming to this area. 800,000 jobs since coming into office, 22,000 jobs last month. Those are the real numbers. We're getting it done, and they couldn't.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Amanda, the same question is going to you. What do you feel the government could do to help workers who are deeply impacted by the high cost of living? What would your approach be to promote economic growth while ensuring fair wages and working conditions?
Sure, thank you. So my conservative colleague here just made mention of the $240 he saved for families, but I just want to throw out there that doesn't even cover my weekly grocery bill. So the reality is people in our community are struggling and they're hurting, and they're constantly being told by this government that they're doing the most they've ever done for them. And I think if we look around, we can all agree that we are all struggling, and that doesn't seem to be the case on the ground. And what does economic growth look like? So when people don't have homes and they can't access healthcare, without healthy communities, we don't have a prospect for economic growth. So when our community thrives, so can our small, medium businesses. So we really do need to be electing officials or electing governments that are going to invest in affordable housing. Not everybody has the dream of home ownership. Most people just have the dream of having a home that is safe and supported, and that they can buy their groceries and also pay for their medication. So I think what some of these statistics that are thrown out demonstrate is that we have a government right now that is pretty out of touch with the reality on the ground. We have a government that favors corporate CEO friends, incentivizes foot traffic to big businesses like Shoppers and Staples and Walmart, and this all comes at the expense of our small business and our local businesses. So an NDP government, we would work to cut red tape and provide access to expansion grants and really level the playing field. But the reality is, until we get some of these social pieces shored up and invested in, we're not going to see that economic growth that we know we can have here in the Bay of Quinte.
Thanks, Amanda. Lori, same question to you. What do you feel the government could do to help workers who are deeply impacted by the high cost of living? What would your approach be to promote economic growth while ensuring fair wages and working conditions?
Thanks for that, Suzanne. Yes, as Greens, we would be working towards more supports for people who are on ODSP and Ontario Works, but moving towards a basic income guarantee for everyone. And that would really help to reduce some of the worries of people who are working for minimum wage without increasing the wages that small businesses have to pay. And because the small businesses are being crushed between, they can only charge so much for their services, but they only have so much money to give to their workers. They're the least supported level of business, and yet they drive our economy much better than any of the other levels of business. So we need to cut red tape and support our businesses as well, and create programs that they are able to access that doesn't take them 8 days during the Christmas rush season to fill out forms to get support for workers. Sorry, support for workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. So our next question, I'm going to start with Tyler and then go to Amanda, Lori, and then Sean on this one. So this question is, Loyalist College has seen numerous applications to provide apprenticeship programs rejected over the past few years. How will you work with local secondary and post-secondary institutions to ensure that our education system is effectively preparing students to meet the demands of today's workforce? I'm going to start with Tyler. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Suzanne. I think it is a very important question with the lack of skilled trades that we're facing right now. So what we're doing is we're revising the high school curriculums and creating new opportunities for hands-on learning that will help students meet the demands of the workforce, including through expanded co-op options and mandatory skilled trade classes starting this fall. We're also working closely with colleges, including Loyalist College, to create new apprenticeship opportunities, and I hope there'll be good news on that front to announce soon. But we've also put in $1.3 billion of new funding for post-secondary institutions, which is the largest single investment in over a decade. Part of the $12 billion we spent to make sure that people in Ontario can get a high quality education without having to pay more, which is what we would see under the Liberals or the NDP. We've frozen student tuition fees since 2018 to make college and post-secondary education more accessible for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Next, same question goes to you, Amanda. I can read it again for you if you would like, or it is also in the chat, but it's the Loyalist College has seen numerous applications to provide apprenticeship programs rejected over the past few years. How will you work with local secondary and post-secondary institutions to ensure that our education system is effectively preparing students to meet the demands of today's workforce?
Yeah, so effectively by funding them appropriately into what they need. The reality is the curriculum has been revised and there has been a focus on skilled trades, new courses, new mandatory skilled trades courses, but without the staffing resources, without the dollars assigned to those classes, schools are struggling to offer them. They're struggling to have enough adults in the building or enough, attract enough skilled trades teachers to be able to offer these programs to their fullest. We also have programs that we know really work in the secondary school system, like the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program and the Specialist High Skills Majors. And these are programs that we know work, and we could expand them with additional funding. So I think funding the programs that already exist to help with the skilled trades within the high school context, and then investing in our post-secondary education institutions. The reality is the government is underfunding them by $1.3 billion. And these programs can only work when we have the resources for them to be flourishing. And I think if they're constantly worried about whether they're going to have enough money to pay the bills, keep the lights on, it's really hard to have incentivize them to turn out more work of our workforce. But we know that for every dollar we invest in post-secondary education or education as a whole, we are being paid back in dividends down the road. So I think it's money well spent, and how to fund it would be to stop the wasteful spending that is continually happening with this provincial government.
Thank you, Amanda. Lori, same question to you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Oh, no, it's okay. I can see it here in the chat, but thank you very much. So I was actually unaware that Loyalist had their applications for apprenticeship programs rejected. I find that very surprising, given the fact that we are desperate for tradespeople, especially in the construction trades right now. So it would make sense to maybe look into why that rejection happened and how could we fix the exact processes to ensure that it's positive going forward. In addition, we need, so I imagine if you're trying to get a skilled tradesperson to teach a course, you need to pay them at a skilled trades level. And I'm also knowing that our post-secondary schools are vastly underfunded. We've seen one go into bankruptcy, and Queen's University, one of the most prestigious universities in Canada, is struggling and having to cut costs and programs. So we need to put the funding in education, and I hate to just mimic or say the same thing Amanda said, but every dollar you put into education pays off down the road. Thanks.
Sean, it's your turn to answer the question. Would you like me to repeat it for you?
No, it's on the screen, Suzanne, I'm ready to go. First of all, we know the value of education, apprenticeship programs. You need them. The Ford Conservatives have cut OSAP, adding stress to thousands of students like my kids and like Dad, because when you can't get the support of the government to go to post-secondary studies, it's frustrating, and it's concerning, it's stressful. And I just wanted to pick up what Lori touched on. Under Ford, 10 of the 23 universities are running a deficit here in Ontario. So I know that Hastings Public School Board, Catholic School Board, they work together, and they have a special day with the Quinte Home Builders, and it's called like Skills Trade Day. And they have this fun, engaging day to get students engaged in the skilled trades. It's beautiful. I've attended it over the past. It's fantastic. I was at an AMO conference or Roma conference in Toronto about a year ago, ran into the Masonry Workers of Ontario. I got talking to them, and they say the only school they have is in the GTA. And I said, well, I'm from Belleville, the Quinte area. they said, we'd love to have a program offered because they have a lot of students from Brockville, Gananoque, Kingston driving to the GTA. So I've had conversations with Mark Kirkpatrick at Loyalist College, the president, to hopefully, I mean, that's something we could work on, is have the masonry course come to Loyalist College for skilled trades and service all the students from Eastern Ontario instead of having to drive to the GTA. It's a win-win, and it helps out all of our sectors in the construction business, and it's good paying jobs. You gotta love it.
Thank you, Sean. Now we're going to go into our next question, which we're going to start with Amanda and then go in order from there. Amanda, there was a significant shortage of family doctors in the Bay of Quinte. Numerous residents in the area are struggling to find a family doctor, and families who have moved here from the GTA still have to travel back to Toronto for medical appointments. What actions will you take to address the healthcare professional shortage and ensure that families in the Bay of Quinte have better access to local healthcare services?
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Yeah, so I think it would start by listening to what family doctors and other healthcare workers are asking for. The reality is they've been very clear, and they've been very clear with this government. They're looking for investment in team-based care. They're looking for solutions to decreasing their administrative burdens. They're looking that instead of funding pharmacies like Shoppers, they want the government to fund pharmacists that are working in family health teams. New family doctors aren't staying in practice, and they're not starting practices because they don't feel that it's a viable business model right now. It's too costly and the support isn't there. So what NDP government would do is listen to our Ontario health teams. And right now they're currently working on a proposal for family doctors and with family doctors to figure out how to provide care to our unattached patients in the Bay of Quinte. And so I think a good first step would be to listen to our healthcare workers, whether it's the family doctors or whether it's the nurses, and deliver on what it is they're asking for. Because until we improve working conditions for our healthcare workers, we are only going to continue to lose healthcare workers to other jurisdictions, out of country, or out of the profession altogether.
Thank you, Amanda. Lori, you're next. You have 2 minutes to answer the question.
I'll try to keep it to 2 minutes because I could go on forever on healthcare in the Bay of Quinte. Per capita funding in Ontario is 15% below average in across Canada, and in Ontario is a rich province. We should be able to do better than that, I think. And beyond that, right now we're spending a lot of money in healthcare on private industries. We're funding long-term care homes that are privatized. That means they have to take profit off of the top of that. We're funding cataract and eye surgeries at private clinics. Again, more expensive. We need to put the money into our publicly funded system. Our public system is there for us, and it is not fully utilized. The reason that we have to keep going to having waiting lists is because we don't have enough funding in the hospitals to run our ORs 24/7. They're closed for half of the day. We could be running around the clock and making, good decisions for the people of Ontario health-wise if we only just started to put the money in the public system instead of privatizing it. And the other issue is worker retention, for sure. I worked in the healthcare system. I was happy to retire at the healthcare system because the workload was untenable. You get in with your running shoes on, you start 15 minutes early, and you're still working 12 hours plus later, sometimes without a lunch, sometimes without a break. And you can't just keep doing that. People are leaving, they're looking for other options. So if we want to retain our staff, we have to make the job something that people can feel proud of, that they know they're doing a good job for their patients, because that's the key to it. We just want to help our patients. Thanks.
Thanks, Amanda. Sean, you're up next to answer that question. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, when Ford got in 2018, it's been 6 years now, he said he was going to end hallway healthcare. Well, now it's in the parking lot. And we see it every day in the Quinte area, whether it's Picton Hospital, Quinte West, at the Trent Memorial Hospital, or BGH. So here in the Bay of Quinte, we are 20,000 people without a family physician or a nurse practitioner. Primary care. Think of that number, over 20,000 people. Last week, I had a conversation with Paula Mason. She looks after doctor recruitment in Trenton at the Memorial Hospital. Trenton and Quinte West could use 10 doctors to alleviate some of the challenges they have for their residents. Wendy Warner, I spoke to Wendy. I said, tell me about the emergency and how things are at Trent Memorial Hospital. 39,000 visits to the emergency department last year at TMH. God bless, we got committed employees, doctors, nurses, RNs, PSWs, RPNs. I mean, they're keeping it going, but they're frustrated, they're exhausted. There's not enough staff. Ford continues to cut. We know that EMS in our area, that they're taking people to the hospital with mental health challenges. Ford has cut $350 million in mental health and addiction funding. It's just not working. Doug Ford's Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, said doctor shortage is not a concern. Can you imagine the Minister of Health saying doctor shortage is not a concern? When that's all I hear at the door, and I know for those who are campaigning, first thing, what's your priority? Healthcare. We don't have a family doctor. We're driving from Ajax, Wyerton, Barrie to keep our family doctor, and we hope he or she doesn't find out that we've moved because we're off their list. It's in crisis. It's in chaos. It's stressful for people.
Thank you, Sean. Tyler, you can conclude this question with your response, please.
Well, thank you very much, Suzanne. And just last month, this government broke ground on a new $200 million hospital for Picton Memorial. We've also invested $8.9 million for the Trenton Memorial Hospital emergency room, 6,000 square feet of renovation, plus an additional 1,000 square feet of space in there. So no one has been more committed to healthcare in this area than this Ontario PC government has. And we have to remember that under the previous Liberal government, they had slated to close both Trenton Memorial and Picton Memorial Hospital. We provided the stable funding to keep them both open. And while we make those investments, we're also working to improve access to all kinds of care. We're empowering pharmacists to treat and prescribe medications for common ailments, reducing the burden on family doctors, and keeping 400,000 people out of emergency rooms. We're also building our healthcare workforce and introducing as of right rules, which automatically recognize the credentials of healthcare professionals from other provinces and territories, making it easier for qualified doctors and nurses to start working in Ontario. This will help alleviate the local doctor shortage and ensure that families in the Bay of Quinte no longer have to travel to the GTA for appointments. And that's not all we've done. We've also increased the number of postgraduate and undergraduate seats. We increased undergraduate seats by 260. We increased postgraduate seats by 449. And we're building 2 new universities to train doctors in Brampton and in Hamilton. So while this is happening, we're getting more doctors trained through the system. 60% of those seats are earmarked for family medicine. And we've also provided grants to people who wanted to be doctors in rural areas, much like the Bay of Quinte. Meanwhile, the opposition parties, including the NDP, supported cuts that worsened healthcare shortages, reducing medical residency positions, and firing thousands of nurses. That's the difference between making a real impact on healthcare and getting nothing done and causing a system that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Our next question is going to start with Lori's response, and it's around accessibility. While many regions in Canada are proactive and innovative with their accessibility measures, Ontario remains reactive. What will you do to ensure the Bay of Quinte is a place for everyone to live with dignity, independence, integration, and equality, regardless of mobility challenges or age? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Suzanne. Well, as the Green Party of Ontario, we believe very strongly in respect for diversity, and that means people struggling with sometimes disabilities. And we were the first party to call for a doubling of OGSP rates. Although now we realize that even doubled, it wouldn't be enough for someone to live in out of poverty. So that is, funding people who have disabilities is the first step, I think, in ensuring that they can participate fully. But beyond that, there are legislative measures you can make to ensure that areas are accessible and created with accessibility in mind, and those should be fully implemented. So often, I walk around the city here in Belleville in the wintertime, and there are sidewalks. There's no way you're getting down them. And I understand that, again, the cost shouldn't just be on the municipalities, but we have a lot of people that are having transportation issues, and they're going around with their mobility devices, and they just can't get down some of these areas. They can't sometimes get through the doors. You know, so we really need to do better and make sure that everybody is involved in our community, that they can all access fully the community. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Sean, you have 2 minutes to answer this question.
Thanks, Susan. Well, I'm on the accessibility committee for the city of Belleville, and I can tell you this much: the Liberal Party is committed to doubling the ODSP. So right off the top, I want to get that in. So being on the accessibility committee for the last 3 years and showing up to the meetings, boy, do you ever learn a lot. You learn through stories and conversations. So we have Westwick's Park, and I'm sure everybody on the Zoom meeting today has been there for one of the festivals, whether it's the waterfront where we celebrate our communities. So we received this letter about access to a park bench from the handicap parking area. And it kind of dawned on us that we didn't realize that that was a mobility issue. So there we go. We get the benches in, the $3,800, and I can see how that has made a big change in that family's life by the accessibility to the waterfront, where they feel a part of their community. When you talk about your community being inclusive, that means everyone. So we have to be a welcoming community. We have to put community first. At the Santa Claus Parade in Belleville, when I was the chair of the accessibility, we had a meeting, and I said, for those that are in wheelchairs or have mobility issues, let's make a zone for the parade that they can watch with no distraction, somebody standing in front of them, where they feel like they're being included and welcomed in their community. And sure enough, that was able to handle that. That's just one small example. More to come, and we have to listen to people. That's the key. Listen to people.
Tyler, you have 2 minutes to answer the same question.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Well, I'm committed to building on the strong foundation that Doug Ford, the Ontario PC government, had laid for seniors and accessibility. We've made significant investments in programs that improve the quality of life for seniors and those with mobility challenges. We've introduced free dental care for low-income seniors over 65, serving approximately 100,000 seniors annually. This $90 million investment addresses a critical health need for that aging population. Our Seniors Home Safety Tax Credit offers households up to $2,500 to help seniors make home modifications, allowing them to age in place with independence. Programs like these are essential to ensuring that people can stay in their homes longer with safety and dignity. We've also made record investments in seniors active living programs and seniors community grant programs, injecting $100 million and $34 million respectively since 2018. These programs empower seniors to stay active, healthy, and connected to their communities.
Thanks, Tyler. Next, it's Amanda. You have 2 minutes to answer the same question.
Yeah, so when I did my master's in occupational therapy about 12 years ago was when the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act was released, much to great fanfare under the Wynne government. But it's been 12 years, and the goal was to be fully accessible Ontario by 2025. We are now within months of that goal, and I can assure you that for people with disabilities, we are nowhere near being a fully accessible Ontario, not even within our own public buildings and public institutions. So I think the reality is, having great goals is wonderful, but if you're not going to fund the projects, if you're not going to fund municipalities and small businesses and provide them with the resources to make accessibility a reality. It doesn't just happen, and it can't just be left to individuals in the community to pay out of pocket to make some of these changes, because accessibility is major and it needs to be something that is addressed at a provincial level. Under this government, we have people who are on ODSP who have considered or went through with medical assistance and dying because they can't survive on the amount of money that they're receiving. So we are not treating our people who are living with disabilities with the dignity and the respect and the care that we need to. An NDP government would call, as some of my colleagues have said, for immediate doubling of ODSP, but also recognizing that that still isn't enough. And the dental plan for seniors that was alluded to by Mr. Alsop is fragmented and arbitrary with ageist limits on amounts, dollar amounts, and on who qualifies and how much they qualify for. So I spoke with some members of the Canadian Association of Retired Peoples in our local chapter, and they talked about how certain things are covered. So you can have teeth extracted covered, but you can't have dentures covered. So what type of dignity are we leaving for our elderly folks in our community if we're saying, yep, we'll take out your rotten teeth, but now you don't have teeth? So I think the reality is we have a long way to go with respect to accessibility in Ontario.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next question is, I'm going to start with Sean Kelly, and then we'll go through in order. What measures do you support to make housing more affordable for residents in the Bay of Quinte and increase the supply? What is your approach to the delays and case backlogs at the Ontario Land Tribunal and the Landlord and Tenant Board?
Thanks, Susan. Well, Ford cut rent control. And again, I touched on this tonight. It's out of control. It's out of control. Families can't afford to buy a home, let alone rent a home or an apartment. Just last week in Frankfurt, knocking on doors, I meet this couple. They're planning to move to Belleville. I think they get into their apartment 1st of December. They've sold their home because they're on fixed incomes. They're not blessed with big pensions. His wife gets $3.66 because she didn't work, but that's what she gets for her federal pension, $3.66 a month. And then they get his pension. They're living on about $1,900 to $2,000 a month. They can't afford the upkeep on the home, roof, furnace, all of that stuff. So they've sold their home, moving to Belleville, because that's the only way they can afford to live. And the cost of the apartment, 2-bedroom, is hardly attainable by them. They're lucky they got a little bit of gravy from the house. So we need to build homes near transit as well. 4 stories. We need mixed density. We see that investment with Hastings County, 32 rooms, mixed density, that the county's paying. You and I are paying on our own without any support from the Ford government. So many students, that's a challenge too. They come to Belleville from Loyal to go to study at Loyalist College, or they get a job here, can't find a place to live. They can't find a place to live. I had a family up in Whitney, Ontario, near Algonquin Park, reach out to me in July. Their daughter's coming to Loyalist starting in September. It's an old hockey friend. Hey, Sean, my daughter needs a place to stay. Do you know anybody or apartment in Belleville or Trenton? Or just, go online, I tell them. They can't afford to pay because it's expensive to stay at Loyalist College as well in the dorms that they have at the college. Anyway, it's out of control. Need more homes and need more support from all levels of government, but particularly the Ford government, because they've dropped the ball continuously for our area.
Tyler, you have 2 minutes to answer the same question.
Well, thank you very much, Suzanne. I appreciate the question. No one is more committed to increasing the housing supply than this Ford government has been. Over the last 3 years, we've had more housing starts than we've had in the last 30 years at any point. And we also set a record last year for the number of purpose-built rentals that are being built, highest ever in Ontario's history. And in the last few months alone, our PC government has invested more than $20 million in infrastructure that will help build thousands of new homes in Belleville and Prince Edward County. It's part of our plan to work with municipalities and build more homes across the province. Unlike the Liberals and NDP who want to raise taxes and increase fees, which would make it harder and more expensive to build homes in Ontario. We also increased funding for our homelessness prevention program to nearly $700 million each year. including an 80% increase to more than 6.15 million right here in our community. To tackle the backlog that was created by the pandemic at the OLT and the LTB, we've hired more adjudicators and staff and are constantly looking for new ways to cut delays and help speed up the process. And as I said in the opening, no one is more committed to increasing the supply of housing than this Ford government has been.
Thanks, Tyler. Amanda, you have 2 minutes to answer the same question.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, rent control would go a long way, and it's something that the government could do tomorrow if they wanted with the swipe of a pen. It's something that kind of started this ball rolling, although we've been underinvesting in building affordable housing units for years, decades even. So the reality is, it's not the number of housing starts that we should be concerned with right now. It's the type of starts that are happening. We need to be investing in affordable housing options and a diverse housing supply too. So whether it's non-for-profit or co-op, the only way to, and with respect to the Ontario Land Tribunal and the Landlord Tenant Board, the only way to address that backlog is to invest in it, is to fund those tribunals, because the reality is the backup there is creating even more chaos, because we have landlords and tenants that are battling each other, and there's already a crunched market. We have units that are sitting vacant because people are in disputes. So the reality is we do need to address that backlog, and it's going to take money. And I think the comment about raising taxes, we don't need to raise taxes. We just need to stop the wasteful spending of this government's vanity projects.
Thank you, Amanda. Lori, you have 2 minutes to answer the same question.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Since the 1990s, we haven't really been building in Ontario any co-op or low market rental housing. And so we have a significant backlog, as everyone has probably already mentioned. But that is the key to one of the keys to our green policies and it's to build the type of homes that people need, the type of homes that people in this riding can afford to buy, not expensive $1 million homes that are being, put up in record numbers. That's not the type of housing that we need. We need to have fourplexes as a right, legalized. We need to be putting in 6 and 11-story apartment buildings in transportation hubs, especially in downtown Belleville. We were supposed to have some affordable seniors apartments, I think, or condos built near the old Legion building, but that project got changed and now it's going to be a parking lot. So we really aren't building the type of housing that we need, and we think that that could be done much better. But we also need rent control, and we need vacancy rent control, so that when people leave their apartment or are forced out of their apartment, that the rent doesn't skyrocket. And we realize that although we're talking about getting rid of bad actors in the landlord, only 15 or 13 fines for bad faith evictions have happened over the last 4 years. 13, not very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. Now these next 4 questions are going to be directed to one candidate in particular. They'll have 2 minutes to answer. The 3 other candidates, if they want to, they will have up to 1 minute to respond to that question. So we're going to start with Tyler. Your question, Tyler, is around the economy and how the way the government spends this money. In real life, if one spends more than it makes, it's called bankruptcy. But in the government, it's called a deficit, and it usually means tax increases. Do you think the government spends tax dollars efficiently? And what do you think they could do better?
Well, thank you very much for the question, and I appreciate that someone wrote this in, but I do have a couple issues with the question. It says that if one spends more than one makes, it's called bankruptcy. Well, bankruptcy is actually when you borrow so much money that you can no longer afford to make the payments on it, and so you declare that to get protection from creditors. This being a business debate, I think it's important that we define our terms here, and that's exactly where we were headed under the 14 years of Liberal government that we had before us, which caused Ontario's credit rating to be downgraded multiple times. What we're doing is making smart investments in growing our economy that will pay off for years to come. And that's like investing in a home. You buy a house, you get a mortgage. No one says, I went into bankruptcy to buy a home. If you want to get an education to improve your future prospects in life, no one says, I went into bankruptcy to get an education. They say, I got an education loan. And so that's what we're doing. We're investing in specific projects across the province that will bring economic growth for years to come. And that leads to the part about tax increases. Well, you don't have to increase the tax if the investments that you're making when you're running deficits are actually going to produce something in the end. Just like if you're starting a business, you need to buy equipment to start that business. You're not going into bankruptcy. You're buying equipment that will produce valuable goods in the future that will then offset the cost of what you've borrowed. So I think it's very important to make that distinction clear. This Ford government has actually had the credit rating of Ontario improved over the last year because of the work that we're doing, because of the investments that we're making, and because of the productivity and the benefits that all of Ontario will reap from the investments that we're making. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tyler. Does any of the other candidates like to make any comments on that question or Tyler's answer to it? Sean, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Susan. Well, we just heard Tyler talk about all the investment in the government spending and all the wonderful news from Doug Ford. Well, that's not the reality all of us here in Ontario are living. He's not supporting municipalities. 444 municipalities in Ontario. At the recent AMO conference that I was at in Ottawa, Tyler not there, it would have resonated with him. There's no money coming from the Ford government for it's just constant downloading. They're not providing the support. We see it all the time. I referred to Hastings County putting in the 32-bed unit, $18 million. Belleville Hub for those that are homeless, $4.1 million. The taxpayers are paying that. County Road 49 in Prince Edward County, nothing happening with that. That's going to be $40 million for the taxpayers in the county. Come on.
Amanda, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so there's no shortage of examples of taxpayer waste with this government, whether it's backroom vanity projects, $250 million to cancel a beer store contract a year early that was set to expire, taking our nurses to court about wages during a pandemic, taking our education workers to court. We're paying for that. Taxpayers are paying for all of those decisions, and it is so wasteful. And while there's lots of money going out, we're looking around here in the Bay of Quinte and we're not seeing the investment. We are not seeing the value for dollar that is coming into the government's coffers. So people are really wondering where these dollars are going. I don't think it's a lack of taxes being paid in. I think it's a wasteful government that is siphoning money out of our public institutions and our public services and our municipalities and into the pockets of friends and rich developers and corporations.
Okay. Lori, did you want to do a rebuttal as well?
Sure.
You have 1 minute. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'll just touch on another matter, which is that under Ford government, we now have more ministries than we've ever had, and we've had more assistant ministers than we've ever had, and they're spending much more. A minister makes $160,000 plus expenses. So actually, instead of being efficient and lean government, which they insisted that Toronto Council be, they were quite happy to bloat their own group of ministers. Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. This next question is going to go to Amanda. She'll have 2 minutes to answer, and the other candidates can do a rebuttal if they would like for 1 minute. So Amanda, your question is around housing and transportation. So acknowledging the need to support this at-risk populations in our community, and to also stop the impact that they're having on businesses in our downtowns. What are your party's priorities in regard to dealing with the growing number of homeless encampments in the towns and cities?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, So really, we have to stop the flow of precariously housed people ending up on the street. We need to start dealing with the complex social issues that are allowing or resulting in people ending up on the street. So we need to invest in affordable housing. We need to invest in preventative and primary health care. We need to invest in the frontline staff that are working directly with this population. We know that they don't have the resources they need to serve this population. And as a result, our small business owners are being forced to moonlight as security guards, mental health workers, first responders, and it's an unfair position to put our small businesses in. Safety of our small businesses and our downtown communities needs to be prioritized. And this government has just recently announced RED funding for PR position to help with downtown Belleville's image problem with respect to homelessness, but they haven't announced any meaningful funding to address the issues of why people are ending up on the street. So we need a reliable partner to come to the table, help put funding into our homeless hub that it was the result of community agencies banding together along with the municipality that decided that this was a project that needed to move forward. And we need to have a reliable partner in this government that's going to come to the table with dollars, because these are expensive and complex social problems to solve. And we need to have that partnership with the province to be able to address them.
Would any of the other candidates like to do a rebuttal or make any comments on this particular question? Oh, Tyler, go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. It's interesting that when someone else answers a question, there's no need for rebuttal, but when it's me, we get all three. But that's no problem at all. There was made mention that dollars we need to be invested. No mention of how many or how or when or where. We've put $3.8 billion into the roadmap to wellness to help with homelessness prevention and help people get back on their feet. We've also announced the new heart hubs, 19 centers across the province to help those who are struggling with addiction issues to get rehabilitated, get treatment, and get back on their feet. As we said, even just locally, we've increased the homelessness prevention program by $2.7 million. It was an 80% increase. That goes through Hastings County, which is a committee I serve on, Community and Human Services, which is making meaningful difference in our community. So we have absolutely been to the table on this issue. No one is more committed to getting it done than us. And we actually have the figures necessary to prove it. Unlike these vague more dollars and more supports, we're actually putting them in. We're not just talking about it.
Lori, go ahead. You have 1 minute, and then Sean.
I won't need a minute. I just want to say that I do have a challenge for Tyler's team and everyone's team right now. Let's get coats, warm clothing. When we go door to door, let's ask for it. Let's do something right away, not vague promises of money that never seems to trickle down to the people that need it the most. But I think that is something we could do. And I'd love to have who can collect more coats for our unhoused people this winter. Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. Sean, you're next. You have 1 minute.
Thanks, Susan. Well, we just heard Tyler. I mean, it's about the people of the Bay of Quinte and not the Ford government. And a couple of comments that Tyler said about 10 minutes ago. He talked about all the grants for healthcare. Grants for healthcare. When he knows as a sitting city councillor, we need $4.1 million from the Ford government to make our most vulnerable and the hub move forward with wraparound services. 4.1 million. And we've heard zero from the Ford government. I've met twice with the ministry, myself with Mayor Neil Ellis, twice, and nothing. They told us at AMO, oh, you're going to get good news, Belleville, the next day. Well, no good news came our way. Anyway, it's an issue that's affecting our downtown business sector, economic development. People are struggling with their mental health and addictions, but also the business sector as well. I know firsthand, I've met with them. And Tyler knows better. He knows better. And I would have expected better.
Okay, our next question we're going to start with Lori, and then the other candidates can make a comment if they choose. The past 6 years has been devastating for the environment and those who are responsible for enforcing provincial policies. The current government cut funding to our conservation authorities by 50% shortly after taking office. Would you consider increasing funding for conservation authorities for their mandatory responsibilities under provincial legislation and regulations? I'm going to ask Lori to start. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. This is probably, luckily for me, the easiest question because we absolutely would restore funding and we would index it so that they wouldn't have lost any. Our conservation authorities are that's what keeps us safe during what will be increasing shocks of heavy rain events and also droughts, which we'll be seeing with climate change. And that's something that Greens, we understand that we need to get emergency preparedness, become resilient and invest because we have like $4.1 billion of damage expected to infrastructure with climate issues the way they are right now. And we saw this summer, we had 1 hour of heavy rain in Belleville and we lost our power and we had flooding. And I couldn't go to work that day. And so that meant the cardiologists weren't seeing patients that day. And that, if you plan for those types of issues and problems together with your conservation authorities, they're the experts in floodplains, they're the experts in knowing where to build, and they definitely deserve all of our support. And I will, housing can be built within city limits. There is enough space to build 2 million homes of the right type of housing, right where people live and want to live. We don't need to sprawl. Sprawl is 2.5 times as expensive to build. And it's taking away our farmland that we're losing over 300 acres a day of prime farmland in Ontario. We cannot replace that. It is an unreplaceable resource. Once you build a house somewhere, that is never going to be renaturalized. So we fully support our conservation authorities and wish they could have even more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Would any other candidate? Amanda, I see your hand up. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I just want to add on to what Lori has said. Conservation authorities are so very important for a number of reasons. They're a big partner with our education partners. They offer a lot of really valuable educational experiences for the students that are living and attending school in the Bay of Quinte. They also do stuff like monitoring for invasive species, and they monitor assessment and risk. And this is crucial for our farming communities. The reality is with increase in invasive species, we have our crops, our cash croppers, they're at risk of losing crops or not being able to react quickly if they're not aware of things that are brewing within our conservation and within our green spaces. So I think it's important for a number of reasons, but also we do need to keep in mind that they serve a really valuable as a really valuable resource for farming community, and we need to be reliable partners, the provincial government, with these conservation authorities. And we also would restore funding, that at least that 50% that was cut by the Ford government.
Sean, you indicated you wanted to respond to this. You have 1 minute.
Thanks, Suzanne. Yes, we must fund conservation authorities. Ford government has shown he doesn't care about protecting the environment. We saw that in the Green Belt in Story out of Toronto. He's currently under the RCMP investigation. Conservation authorities are key in any municipality. I was on the Bay of Quinte Conservation Board for 4 years. There's 18 different municipalities that work closely from the north to the east to the west. They control flooding. They let us know if we're in danger of having some challenges with Mother Nature. But Ford, he just wants to gut it. He wants to just build, no respect for green space. And, we live in one of the most beautiful parts of Ontario. And I'm blessed, and you are blessed to live in this area. We know how popular it is with the tourism sector. Ford wanted to pave the green belt, if you can believe that. So he's no respect for it. And it's really unbelievable. And the way he takes to green space.
Any other comments on this question? Okay, so we're going to go to our next question. Sean, this is going to go to you. You're going to have 2 minutes to answer. And Just gonna put up the question here now. In Ontario, colleges and universities receive the lowest percentage provincial funding among provinces across Canada, receiving 30% on average, while most other provinces receive an average of 60%. Given the bulk of training, workforce development, and research in our province happens in these institutions, and many act as centers for innovation, this funding reality is difficult to understand. What is your party's position on support and funding for post-secondary institutions in Ontario?
Well, we know right off the top, the Ford government has forgotten about universities. Queen's University in Kingston. Think of the thousands of students that go to Queen's. I think their numbers are in around 20,000. So they sign up, they invest. Maybe your son or daughter goes there, or a relative. They sign up, they want to study, but then they're constantly hearing that their school's in deficit, the professors there. That's stress, not only to students and mom and dad, but also the professors, all the employees. That's one example. Ford has cut 10 out of the 23 universities are running deficits. Post-secondary is key. We know that education is the key to success. If you have a good, solid education, whether it's the skilled trades, post-secondary in college or university, you have a better chance of making more money and being successful. And we touched on it earlier, was the OSAP, adding stress to thousands of students, asking them to either quit school or go in debt. And the lack of skill, training and placements within community. I ran into this chap the other day knocking on doors. He's in his early 60s. So he goes back to school, and he was a happy-go-lucky guy. He takes the skilled trades program at Loyalist College, and he becomes a bookkeeper. So he has his bookkeeping job, and he's trying to get work. But after he leaves the college, he's got about 2 or 3, but he just doesn't feel that the investment was there with the Ford government. This was a student that just did it. I think it was like maybe a year or 2 ago. So we need more support for educators and folks that want to go back and pick up a second skill. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Anybody would like to comment on this question? No? Okay. Oh, Amanda, go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I just lost my. Yeah, so restoring funding to our post-secondary education is paramount. Colleges and universities are facing an immediate challenge making up the losses in the sector. So NDP government would invest in public post-secondary education by making sure that they have funding, not just funding, but reliable and stable funding. At the same time, the provincial government has a responsibility to crack down on the proliferation of private strip mall colleges that's taking advantage and exploiting not only international students, but also our students that are homegrown. Our public institutions must be a priority, and we must ensure that students that are coming to Canada or students that are studying from within Ontario have access to the best education possible.
Thank you. Oh, Tyler, go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you very much. And as I said earlier, we've hit record high investments in post-secondary education, including 1.3 billion just this year, which I believe is the exact number that Amanda said that they were underfunded by. So it looks like we got that shored up. We put $12 billion into the sector every year, and we have been committed on not increasing student fees for the past 6 years, which certainly would have happened under a Liberal government. And under Bonnie Crombie, that's something that students may be able to look forward to, is increased student fees. We're keeping them low so that the best and brightest in Ontario have the opportunity to go to college or university and make the most of their lives. And we look forward to benefiting from those contributions.
Okay. Anybody else? Lori, did you need to? Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead. 1 minute.
So we still see that our universities and colleges are so underfunded that some of them are facing bankruptcy, which I think we discussed earlier what that means. And Queen's University and other universities struggling, and colleges bringing in international students simply because they're counting on them to support the school. And we don't have the housing for these international students. We don't have the jobs for these international students. It's causing, you can see that it's like a domino effect. So I appreciate the 1.3 billion, but let's make it 5 billion. Why not? How much are you going to spend on that highway to cottage country, the 413, when you have a perfectly good 407?
Okay, well, it's really hard to believe, but we are almost out of time. I'm going to slip one last question in just because I thought it was an interesting question. We're going to give everybody just 1 minute to respond to it before we go into our closing remarks. The COVID pandemic is in the rearview mirror, thankfully, but we all know that COVID is still out there, and I think for a lot of businesses, it's still very much a reality for them. They're still dealing with heavy debt load. They're still dealing with recovery. There's some sectors that are still recovering and are still hard hit, such as our hospitality and tourism sector, which is hugely important here in this riding. So the question to all of you, and Tyler, will start with you and go through everybody else's answers. The question is, what have we learned from COVID-19 that will help us improve the government's response to future pandemics, specifically regarding its impact on small businesses?
Well, thank you very much. And as I said before with small business questions, it's not hypothetical for me. I was a small business owner during COVID. I had to navigate through that process, and I really regarded the Ontario PC government and Doug Ford as being a strong partner during that time period. They created the Ontario Small Business Support Grant with up to $20,000 in funding, which was flexible and could be used to cover things like rent, utilities, wages, and other issues that businesses were having during closures, whether temporary or prolonged. And looking ahead, we've learned that a tailored and flexible approach is essential for supporting small businesses during future crises. With initiatives like tax relief, energy cost reductions, rent support, and digital tools to help businesses expand online, we've laid the groundwork for a more effective response in the future. And I think that as a small business owner myself, this was a very difficult time for us, but this government responded. They stepped up to the plate, and I certainly appreciate their contributions.
Thank you, Tyler. Amanda, you're next. Do you have 1 minute to respond to this question?
Sure, thank you. I think what COVID taught us all is that all levels of government need to be reliable partners to each other, especially when these types of extreme events happen. We also need to ensure that when we're dealing with things like the pandemic, that we're not inadvertently creating more disparity between small business and big business. The rules need to be the same and the playing field needs to be leveled. So this government created a scenario during COVID where people were driven in waves to businesses like Walmart, and they were able to make record profits off of us, while small businesses were forced to close and fend for themselves. So I think while there was some help, and I know this was a steep learning curve for any government, no one had the opportunity to react to this. I think what we learned is that we need to be working together at all levels of government, but also mindful of any of the solutions that we are implementing for people, that we're not negatively impacting small business and our local business community.
Thanks, Amanda. Lori, you're next. You have 1 minute to respond to this question.
Thank you. Well, I will just say as a healthcare worker that the COVID is still with us, and we are still having record numbers of people very ill coming into hospital, record numbers of people coming down with long COVID, and there doesn't seem to be any new vaccines this month for it. So I just want to remind people that it is still here. It can still very much affect your health. So everyone should be safe in masking as much as possible. And I did find that, I understand, I can't really blame any level of government for their COVID response because it was a new virus. We were doing the best we could. I understand that, but it did seem to impact small businesses unfairly, where they were forced to close their doors, even though they were a much safer option for shopping than going into a large box store. Thanks.
Thanks, Gloria. Sean, you're next. You have 1 minute to respond to this last question.
We need to create the environment to thrive. I mean, Ontario currently has the highest small business tax rate in the entire country. So when the Ford government talks about, small business and how important it is, still has the highest small business tax rate in the entire country. And I see it as chair of the Economic Development Committee and my role in long-term care with the Hastings Prince Edward Public Health Board. I know the value of health and public safety. And we went through that with COVID. And I had, still so much respect for all the downtown businesses that survived the pandemic. I know it was a challenge. I was working through it. I heard the stories. I think we can all remember in Bob Cajun when the nursing home was the first big story in Ontario, actually in the country, to have the loss of life due to the pandemic. But Ford, he's refused to pass a Liberal bill, I should add, that would cut the small business tax rate in Ontario by half and would save over 275,000 small businesses as much as $18,000 annually.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to all of the businesses that put forward those questions. I think we covered a lot of topics today, and it really was a great opportunity to hear from our 4 of our local candidates and their positions on these various areas of concern. We are now going to go into closing comments. We're going to start with Lori. You have 2 minutes for your closing comments.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for everyone, for ourselves to bring out our platforms and to reach some people, because we're never going to get on every door this election period. I just want to let you know that I feel uniquely qualified to represent this riding. I've had over 30 years of frontline healthcare work experience, and I have seen and heard firsthand the issues that so many people are facing. And as an environmental advocate, I'm aware of the importance of protecting our natural heritage. And as a National Farmers Union member, I'm learning more each day about the needs of our local farmers. And as a CARP member, I can advocate for seniors because I am one. And as a concerned grandmother, I understand the importance of limiting pollution and greenhouse gases and ensuring a safe future for our children and grandchildren. What I can't promise you is a buck of beer. I can't promise you that I'm going to make sure that everyone can get liquor closer to home, but I can promise you that I can focus on the real needs of our riding. Housing that fits the needs of everyday people. Housing that we can afford, healthcare with a focus on preventative care and primary care, and plans to support affordability. On September 19th, you can vote for a better way of doing politics. You can vote for a green and caring economy. You can vote for Lori Borthwick. You can vote green. It's time.
Thank you, Lori. Amanda, we're ready for your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. As we head to the polls this time, we really need to ask ourselves how many times we will forgive a government that has had every opportunity to act on our most pressing issues, but does not. And at the same time tells us they're doing the most investment, but we're not seeing it. At the doors, we're not hearing it. People are struggling. This by-election is our opportunity to act by sending a message to Doug Ford and his politicians that we are done being taken for granted, that we deserve better, and that we demand it. This by-election, we have the exciting opportunity to make a different choice. NDP has come second in the last 2 provincial elections here, and we are the official opposition at Queen's Park with a strong leader and a team with boots on the ground holding Doug Ford's feet to the fire. We deserve better here in the Bay of Quinte, and we can have better. We can have public health care you can rely on, homes we can afford and afford to live in, strong, well-supported local schools, and good jobs that pay more. A vote for NDP is a vote for a representative that will stand up to Doug Ford's cuts and privatization. I will put the people of the Bay of Quinte over party. No one will hand me a script and tell me how to vote. And I will work hard to bring our challenges, but also our solutions to Queen's Park by listening and working with the people who live and work here. So a vote for Amanda Robertson and the NDP on September 19th is a vote for better.
Thanks, Amanda. Tyler, you're up next with your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. I want to thank everyone for watching tonight and all of my fellow candidates for participating in this discussion. Throughout this campaign, I've been clear about my priorities: keeping costs down, building the infrastructure we need, and ensuring Bay of Quinte continues to grow and thrive. As someone who has lived and raised a family in this community, I care deeply about its future. and I've seen firsthand the impact our government's actions have had in making life more affordable and creating new opportunities. As a Belleville councillor and small business owner, I've always focused on solutions that make a real difference for families and local businesses. I fought to reduce costs, get homes built, and ensure Bay of Quinte has a strong voice in government. If elected, I will continue that fight, advocating for better jobs, more housing, and a strong, vibrant community. I'm asking for your vote for me to keep getting it done for Bay of Quinte. Together, we can ensure that our community remains a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thanks, Tyler. Sean, you're going to close it out with your closing remarks. Please, you have 2 minutes.
Thanks, Susan, and just want to thank the Quinte West Chamber. You mentioned off the top, 800 strong members, and I know that Quinte West was a part of the Business Achievement Award. You're actually the founder, and now the county and the city of Belleville a partnership with that. And congratulations to all the winners over the years. I've been at a few of those events, and I tell you, when they get to receive their award or they're acknowledged all their hard work supporting their community and hiring people, those students and all of that stuff, that's good stuff. Anyway, congratulations. I just wanted to say my first suit that I ever owned was purchased in downtown Trenton at a place called Rob Brown's Menswear. It doesn't fit me anymore, but that's where I bought my first suit. I love the Bay of Quinte. I've raised my family here. I've been engaged in so many things, and I've taken so many things from the work that I've put in, the people I've met, the stories I've heard and shared. And I'm ready for this. I know that healthcare, education, having a voice for our most vulnerable, mental health support that Ford has cut, affordable homes, all of those issues that we've talked about, and I'm hearing at the door. I know I'm the person for it. I have the most experience. I'm a good listener. I show up to things. I do my homework. And I love to consult and talk to people in the different sectors that are having challenges. That's why I reached out to Paula Mason and Wendy Warner in Trenton. It was important for me to find out what was happening in healthcare. I reached out to some of the chamber members today in Quinte West to find out what's the pulse of the community. I could go on and on and on, but I love this community. I'll work hard for Quinte West, the county and the city of Belleville. And I already know the players. It's not like I'll have to take months to get up and running because I already know the people that are doing the work. I'm Sean Kelly on September the 19th, next Thursday. I hope I can get your support. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. I should just clarify, we have close to 500 members. Maybe one day we'll have 800, but we have about 850 reps that watch our communications. And they represent over 8,000 employees in our community. So we certainly are the voice of business, and we do listen to the business concerns. And I wanted to thank all of the candidates today for taking the time to address some of those business concerns. I know how busy you are. I know how many doors you need to knock on to try and cover as much of this huge riding that we have. I want to thank Tyler Alsop, Progressive Conservative Party, Sean Kelly, Liberal Party, Amanda Robertson, the New Democratic Party, and Lori Borthwick from the Green Party for joining us today. And just put a reminder out there to everybody that the advance voting is open until September 13th, and you can vote in person at returning offices until September 18th. And then, of course, you can also cast your vote by mail. And of course, you can vote on election day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. We are going to be hosting a Get Connected that night. So we encourage our members to go vote and then come and join us for some at one of our local restaurants up in Frankfurt. It really is important, not who you're voting for, but that you actually get out there and vote. We would encourage everybody to go to elections.on.ca if you have any other questions about how you can vote in this next election and make your choice known for this riding. Thank you once again. Really appreciate it. This event today has been recorded and will be shared out. Thank you.